Hello everybody. You are within the space of my artwork performance, so I can do whatever I want to do. Normally these tours are called Schadenfreude Guided Tours and Schadenfreude. This is going to be a very long tour. Now usually it's not meant for professionals at all, so you better leave while it's time. And Schadenfreude, invented for this exhibition here in 2003 in Kassel, refers to the Balkans, obviously, taking pleasure in the misfortune of your friend and neighbor. Now, there are so many artists from the show, the curators are present, that I cannot really perform Schadenfreude, but having in mind that I'm probably the only artist present who has such a luxurious hotel room, I take pleasure in that. Now the complaints, as every artist is complaining from the curators, these are 50 drawings, there are only 33 here. But I forgot to make a drawing for that 2003 work. The drawings are actually letters to the other artists in the show with short comments. I forgot to make a drawing for Vlado Martek, who is not in this show, and I think he should have been in this show. So in his honor, I put this photograph in front of his work, performing this particular guided tour in Kassel. And another artist friend who is not in this show, though I think he shouldn't have been in this show, because he's not a discursive artist, but an artist who knows a lot about the art world and art institutions, and that's my friend Netko Solokov. We're here in this photograph by Jaro Bundova in 1994 in Sozopol on the Black Sea coast with raised hands when we were still thinking in '94 that contemporary art has won in Bulgaria. Obviously, we were completely wrong. But knowing that you know Netko, most of you, this is the first drawing that we exchanged. The first work that I was doing these textual works, and it's in his collection. I have a lot of his works, he has a lot of my works. And he selected this from a group of 25, and it says, it's a dog-eat-dog art world. You know the English expression, American English expression, is a dog-eat-dog world. In my version, it's a dog-eat-dog art world. And so he has mastered this navigation within the art institutions. And with this short aside, I will just now go on with my performance. And you know maybe my works, but you don't know me. And after I finish the first part, if you still like me, you can stay and we go on. If you don't like me, you can leave, professional or not professional. Now, so the first part starts with a little bit of history of Bulgaria, which is part of the Balkans. And the Balkans has this amazing quality of being the leftover of all these many empires, including the Austro-Hungarian, the ex-Yugoslav, the Soviet Empire, the Ottoman, the Byzantine, blah, blah, blah. Now, this is the first Bulgarian artillery. It's a cannons made in 1876 for an uprising against the Ottoman. And they're made out of cherry tree. They were completely unfunctional. The April uprising in 1876 was meant as a performance. It was meant to raise the attention of the great powers.
Yugoslavia was a great power, huh?
Yugoslavia was not a great power in 1876. Ottoman was a great power. It was suppressed. The uprising was suppressed. Many years later, they tried to restage some of the events so that they could be photographed. They looked like a performance, but they didn't know yet the language, how to do the performance. So there are a lot of funny Turks and funny Bulgarians doing strange things in these things. So this is another one. Finally, most of them were taken like this with chains. The revolutionaries who were caught, most of them were either killed or caught. They were sent like this to Diyarbakir. Chained to Diyarbakir is what's now Kurdistan, the main city. So this is the mythology which is Bulgaria is based on. It has been reenacted in a lot of movies, socialist realist style movies. This is the Ivan, the fighter of bears, who takes one of these cherry cannons up a hill to fight the hated Turks. he's warning all the villagers in the village that the cannon is gonna go boom. So they should everybody be aware, and they should always put the kids away, and the women should not be upset. And then of course they fought the Turks heroically, and they lost. But this is a movie. This is a representation already from the 50s, and this is much more heroic. They lost. They suffered terrible things in fire, murder, rape, and so the great powers were aroused. They came to our rescue, especially one great power, which is the Russian Empire, and they liberated us. They were brothers at the time. Of course, they had their own interests, but who doesn't? So there is this other movie which is representing the liberation war between Russia and Turkey in 1878. So this is a Soviet-made movie, and it basically concentrates on the whole process, but basically on one major battle, which was fought not far from the village where my father was born, and not far from the village which will also feature prominently. Well, the point is that the forces were unequal. The Turks were many. Our poor Bulgarians, who were paramilitary at the time, were few, of course. And then the Russians came at some point, but before the Russians came to our rescue, they ran out of ammunition. The Turks were coming and coming and coming. It's high up in the mountain. It's a mountain pass. So if you let them go and pass, the war is over. If you stop them, go from south to North Bulgaria, across this mountain range, the Balkans. This is my village. This drawing I was using to explain to René Bloch where my village is. So if they pass from here to here, over. So when they ran out of ammunition, they started using everything from this what is it called, the bayonets, to the buckets for powder, then even the bodies of their dead comrades. Yeah. So it's part of our mythology. It's all very much part of our mythology that you cannot even believe it. It's like this is the basis of Bulgarian performance art. So and finally, the battle was won, and now they do every year they do reenactments of the uprising at first in such a way in the main places of the uprising. Sometimes they make mistakes because it's more like a carnival. So there were no Turkish women at that time dressed like this, but now who cares? They even have the Russians coming to our rescue on the Mount Shipka. It is called. The main battle was fought on this Shipka pass, and they even cut off heads of Turks. I mean, of course, they're puppets during the reenactments. Now, all of this happened. In this particular, up in the mountains.
It's still a cannon the Bulgarian took from the Turks.
No, they produced it themselves. Actually, the cherry cannons were produced by artists who were producing iconostasis for churches, and they made the cherry. This is the monument which is guarding the mountain pass right now. It's called Shipka Monument, and it is the main heart, fortified point of the Bulgarian identity. It is where, at first, it's associated at first with our kind of Osana point, like raising, and then with crucifixion, because what happened was that this particular mountain, the Balkan mountain, it was used as a border to further fuck up the Balkans and the country. After the successful war, at first there was a treaty which gave Bulgaria a big territory. It was all these marked territories. That was the golden dream, the golden age. Bulgaria on 3 seas: the Black Sea, the Aegean Sea, the Adriatic Sea, an empire. Unfortunately, they couldn't tolerate it, so it was split into different parts. North of the mountains, where my village was, south of the mountains, this kind of cross thing, which was semi-independent, this was independent. Romania and Serbia, of course, were already independent, and this poor part here, which has a lot to do with who I am, and who Susanna Milevska, my curator, it remained within the Ottoman Empire for more than 50 years. And then from there on, the story goes in 2 different ways. So almost like in another reenactment of historical events, it is connected by this particular person, which is Bulgarian Jeanne d'Arc, She's called Raina Knyagina. She made the flag for the upraising. Well, I mean, it's just a reproduction. The fact that there is the nude, this drawing on the right-hand side of a nude descending a staircase is just a coincidence. This is the one. She's the one. She's the heroine. And then also with this particular location, which is a small summer house where they raised sheep in the village of Genčovci on top of the Balkan Mountains, not far from Shipka mountain pass, which is the property actually of a colleague of mine, member of ICA, Sofia, an artist by the name of Krasimir Terziev, whom I will mention in connection to another work a little bit later on. So this is the map of this location, and from this particular location you can see two very important for me and my family monuments. So one is this one, you can see it like this, so in the far distance. The other one is this one. You cannot see it here, it's a little bit farther away, but I'll show it to you. Now I have the model of this particular one here, but this particular one looks like this. It looks like a UFO. It is the best example of Bulgarian Soviet modernism in architecture. This is the place where at the end of the 19th century, Bulgarian Communist Party was founded. They don't know what to do with this monument anymore. It's abandoned.
Socialist Democratic Party.
Bulgaria Workers' Socialist Democratic Party. It was founded.
It was not communist.
Well, it became communist. Tell you about it. It was founded by this person. His name is Dmitry Blagoev.
We know.
Okay, he came from a small village near the city of Kosturia now, which is located here. I mean, sort of west of the south of the Ohrid Lake and west of Kosturica, all the way further south and west. There are Albanians. I mean, there were no Slav people further south. Okay, so he came from this village, and for some reason, he decided to migrate not to Skopje, not to Thessaloniki, not to Plovdiv, but not to Belgrade, which is somewhere here, not to Istanbul, which is here, but to Sofia, and to settle there. There was no nation state at the time, so you cannot say they identified. They were escaping actually the Greeks, because it was obvious that the Greek minority, the Greek population is much bigger and much stronger, and Greece was already independent. There would be ethnic cleansing, so they escaped. Now the thing is that his best friend, who actually came from the same village, and who gave his son to his daughter, it's my great-granduncle. He's called Anastas Yankov. He was a liberation fighter. He became a military man, a colonel in the Bulgarian army. He was fighting very hard in all the wars, even in Shipka Pass while he was a young man. Then he studied in Russia. He became a hero of one branch of the Macedonian liberation struggle. Not all of them were agreeing on everything. Now, okay, so they came from the same village. Their children married. They both migrated to Sofia. They both established. This guy lives not far from where I live. His daughter, finally, married this guy, who is the first cousin of my grandmother. His name is Kosta Yankov. This guy, Kosta Yankov, also became a military man. He was a major in the Bulgarian army. And what he was also radicalized. And so that is the interesting point. They were refugees. They radicalized. Why? I don't know. They came to Sofia, they radicalized. He was at some point in April 1925, he was the leader of the military wing of the Bulgarian Communist Party. And they were arguing with Stalinists in Moscow what to do, which way to take. What he did on 16th of April 1925 is this. This is still the biggest terrorist act in the history of Bulgaria. He blasted, at first they killed the general. 2 days later, on 16th of April 1925, when all the government and the royal family was in this church, St. Neder, in the center of Sofia, to do the service in honor of the general, they blasted the roof of the church. More than 200 people got killed, 500 injured. The king, Boris III, survived because there was just a mix-up somehow. Kosta Yankov was immediately caught, 5 days later, killed. This is my grandmother, who is his first cousin. She was playing with the daughter of the founder of the Bulgarian Socialist Democratic Party. In my family, we still had photographs of Stella Blagoeva. This is my grandmother, actually, Svoboda, coming from Macedonia, Botka. Svoboda means freedom. Photographed during the Paris fair in 1936 in front of the Soviet pavilion with Vera Mukhina in the background, and if you look behind her hat, you can see also the Nazi pavilion at that time. So this is the one part of the story, and it ends with the best example of Bulgarian modernist architecture, this Bauhaus building. There is no such building in Sofia. This was our pavilion in Paris. And it has something to do with Bulgarian architecture, and especially modernism, but I don't know what, because it was designed by French architects for the use of Bulgaria during Paris thing. Now we go in the other direction, from this monument, this way. So we were in Macedonian part, we go a little bit here. So this person here, Kosta Yankov, is the bad guy. You know, he's my granduncle, the terrorist. I don't know what to do with him. But there is even worse. He went left, radical left. Now the people from this part here, this is like my village. It's called Mlechevo. It's a very small, dying village, not 20 kilometers away from Shitka Pass. This is where we go for New Year's. This guy here is Krasimir Terziev, I already mentioned. You can recognize Netko Solakov, Yara Bubnova, and myself. We go to my house for New Year's. Now, this is a small village, and that's my father, who was actually born on May 1st, 1925, 2 weeks after the terrorist act in the St. Nedela Church. Because he was born on May 1st, when he was member of the resistance as a young communist in the 40s, in the city of Sivlievo, which is where the grandmother of Basha Ksenova is born, by the way, the city of Sivlievo, so we are related somehow. So when he was, the police beat him up additionally, because he was a communist, young communist resistance member, and he was born on May 1st, Labor Day, so you're a fucking communist father and calculated. So this is my father when he died. He died a few months before November 1999, the Berlin Wall went down. Now I owe him this village house. In the yard of this village house is this commemorative plate to the big disappointment of my very best friend Netko. He doesn't have in his village, in his yard, such a plate. So I have one on top of him. So this is where the grave of another my ancestor was here. Now this ancestor was the mayor during the April uprising. That's this guy. His name is the mayor of several villages. Churbaji, Michu Minkov Gulabov. He was a smart guy. When the uprising, at first he promised to send the young man to fight. And then he told them, come on guys, you don't go. You cannot overthrow an empire with cherry cannons. So he saved the young man. But what happened was that just less than 20, he saved these young men. But their children, what happened to them was, they survived and they went to America. They wanted to go to America. In the churchyard of my villages, there is this symbolic grave. There are 8 men in this, whose memory is commemorated in this symbolic grave. These young men were on the Titanic, 4th class, and they perished. But they left they left children, because they made sure they impregnate their wives. And then 2-3 months their children are born, and then they go to America as Gastarbeiter, which is, by the way, the word that you wanted to have in the show. My Gastarbeiter work now in the Moderna Galleria. I'll explain about it later. Now, these 2 people, one went right and was not a revolutionary, so he sort of flunked his case. This one's too much revolutionary. So I don't know what to do, but with these 2 branches of the family, and because I don't know what to do, I also didn't know how to do this tour. I decided to start here, and then to move down, but then it didn't somehow click, so I decided to use, where is Tadej? I decided to use his advice. So I brought this special, these are called story cubes. In his text for the Parasite Museum, he says the best way to give the narrative, the problem we have now is like in the West, the institutions are creating the narrative, and then we are sort of become part of the narrative or are left out. In the East, or at least in my background, we create the narrative, and then the institutions, and then, today in the morning I threw the dice like this, and so in the story cubes you get all these little images, and I swear, I can show you the photograph of the dice. There was an image of somebody like this. there was an image of somebody who is like that, like the other guy. And there are all sorts of, and so I decided to follow the story according to the dice. And this is in honor of your project in this exhibition, which I find very, very exciting. And then now I collect the dice and we move on to the other room because I have a lot more things to tell you about this exhibition. But I have to use my other prop. Because I sometimes don't know what to do. This is what I mentioned empires. So, the Balkans empires. You know, what is this, yeah? This is the Habsburg Empire, the Habsburg emblem. Empires have double-headed eagles. It's like the ultimate emblem of war. For a project in Graz 4 years ago, I created another emblem, the double-headed dove, as pacifying emblem. And it's very important because, on the other hand, in Austria, you can always also see this kind of thing. And it's very important for this exhibition, for our lives, because it's always like East and West, like kebab and Coca-Cola. We're sort of spread between what have these monuments here of Lenin in Kiev and of Leonardo in Singapore. It's always like orientation points. Or nowadays we are spread between the remnants of communism, like this monument in Sofia, which we don't know what to do, and then the neoliberal, new kind of nouveau-riche dinosaurs that spring up everywhere in the resorts. So this is in this context we are dealing with art institutions, which are not only art institutions, but they are representing something rather more significant and more. And we have to move now in that direction. I'll try to make it faster.